Taking a brief break from the construction side of my cigar studio up the road, I find myself hanging out on the west side of the valley in which I live in southern Japan. The reason why I am up here in this very treacherous, steep terrain part of the valley is because it shelters me from the wind, and that allows me to spark a stogie during my lunch break. Today's lunch break cigar is Gran Habano's Corojo number 5 out of Honduras. This fatty Robusto, which is called a Gran Robusto, has a 54 ring gauge on it and is 6 inches long. So in essence, it's actually a Toro, but we'll get to that later. The wrapper on the cigar is a Corojo out of Nicaragua. The binder's an Habano, also out of Nicaragua. And then the filler blends inside of it are from Costa Rica and Nicaragua. Gran Habano, to me, has always done a great job of presenting itself, at least in regard to the construction of its cigars. While the banding and branding seems like it's pulled straight from the late 1800s, the actual cigar tobacco itself that is underneath is actually quite well done. This Corojo is a bit of a ruddy reddish brown color, and while the veins on it are notable in color as well as in touch, seams on it are nice and clean, construction is good, feels nice and tight, and the aromatics along the barrel, while somewhat citrusy and spicy like Corojo, remind me more of an Habano than anything, which is the binder part of this cigar. There's a little bit of tooth popping out here and there, and while the oily sheen to the color of the cigar is notable, you don't feel it so much on touch. So while the wrapper may not have the most impressive aromatic attributes, the foot smells delish. It's that mixture of black and white tea and some lemon, a little bit of sugar or agave syrup, and there's that Corojo spice to be smelled in there along with a little bit of the Habano, but it's more of a peppery kick with that citrus-like touch from the lemon zest added to your black and white tea mix. You've got a great aromatic for a starter that is balanced with a little bit of clay-like soil. The only other thing that I have to say about this cigar has nothing to do with the way it looks or smells. It's its value. At 33 bucks or so, a fiver, this cigar packs a ton of pop when it comes to price point. I also like that the cigar has a larger ring gauge that makes it ideal for being a yard cigar because I can chew on it, gnaw on it, and it won't fall apart on me as easily, and it will keep burning most of the time when I set it down for a moment to go wash my hands after handling some compost. But enough with the initial impressions. Let's get to it, shall we? Because I have to get back to work. Cold draws may have some of those black tea notes in there, but they're not as sweet as they smell upon the foot. And I detect more fermented farmhouse funk than anywhere else on the cigar, at least in aromatics. It's like a wet hay-like fermented taste too. This is not the most pleasant cold draw I've ever experienced in my life, so let's hope that this sucker tastes a lot better lit up. Ooh, spicy already. Initial impressions of this cigar are a double-sided coin. On one side, you have the traditional Corojo spice and black and white pepper and some of that sweet tea taste that we love, along with the lemon and citrus, a little bit of sweet soil as well and fermented funk. But it's also light and grassy, and the body is surprisingly lightweight and not nearly as intense as you would think. This makes a very good start to the cigar that is strong and spicy, but not overbearing, and as it's going, it's getting sweeter. First third of this cigar reminds me exactly why I love Costa Rican tobacco when it's integrated into a cigar blend. It's this interesting concoction of tropical palm bark and coconut milk, and maybe not milk, but more like toasted coconut in that roasted sense. And there's a light soil dryness that comes with it, even though the cigar itself is getting sweeter as it goes. Retrohales are still very much a Corojo impression though, and there's some spice there here and there, but it's not as intense as it was during initial impressions. The draw is outstanding. The smoke itself is nice and cool upon the palate. I don't feel any hot spots on the burn line as the cigar goes, and the ash, while leaning a little bit, is still building very nicely because Gran Habano. Seriously, y'all, these guys roll fantastic smokes. I rarely have any construction issues with them. Oh, and lest I forget, the body of the cigar is moving into a medium range, and while the strength of the cigar is definitely still pretty in your face, it's nothing beyond medium either. It's just spicy. Flavors are more on the upper end of medium though, and that's a good thing because, well, I like a lot of flavor in my cigars, especially when it comes to the Corojo. As things start to finally get cedary on you, and in a sweet yet dry sense, black tea comes back to join the procession. This second third is very similar to the first third, outside of the addition of a little bit of lemon cake with icing thrown on top. It's not that I'm complaining, this is actually fantastic all mixed together, but for those looking for really intense transitions between the first and second third and whatnot, well, this might not be the most appealing portion of the cigar for you. However, the cigar is still very medium and delicious and quite aromatic, and the finish on it is getting longer as it goes, and aftertaste is outstandingly good. The final third gets a little darker on you, so there is a transition to be had at this moment. Hooray! With this transition comes a generic nuttiness. Silence, bird! I'm doing a cigar review, damn it! Where was I? Oh yes. Rude interruption out of the way. We turn back to the generic nuttiness that goes with these darker, soil-rich like flavors. Can't really pinpoint what type of nuts it tastes like. It's definitely not peanuts. It's just a mixture of dry tree nuts, really. There's also a little bit of vanilla to go with this, and the smoke is very creamy. There are also some stray tropical fruit notes that are also kind of generic. It's not mango, it's not papaya, it's not pineapple, it's not a loquat. It's something between all of these, and it's definitely on the drier end, the dry fruit end, that is. I'm also detecting some palm bark-like notes, almost as if the tobacco is aged in a tercio, even though we know it's not, or at least that's what is advertised on the Gran Habano website. Still, a very good final third, and I'm getting to the point now where it's about time to deband and move into parting puffs. Corojo number 5 band. Away you go. Parting puffs on this cigar are pleasurable, but also a little bit off to me. On the tasty side of things, you do get some more cedar, and there is some peppery Corojo spice and some citrus still going on, but it's more of an earthen, funky, soil-like taste that I'm detecting now. These tastes go pretty well with the nuttier flavors that are still lingering in the cigar, but because there's this kind of funky, char-like aftertaste going on right now that's not too intense, but is there, I'm not too keen on that. I've also detected a little bit of ammonia in the cigar, which does happen when tobacco leaf is under-fermented or doesn't ferment properly in the process. The upside, the draw is still very good. The burn line is pretty clean despite needing one tiny touch-up right before parting puffs, and I'm still smoking away. So let's get to some final assessment notes, shall we? I think that this cigar is another great option from Gran Habano, especially for those of you who do like a Corojo cigar, but aren't into something that's too pricey because you're outside mowing the lawn or doing some gardening. The vitola itself is ideal for this sort of situation, as I mentioned earlier, and while it is marketed as a Gran Robusto, we all know it's a Toro, of course, I still think that the cigar itself, the way that it's built, is pretty much ideal. It's not the most attractive looking Corojo, and yes, the branding and banding is very dated looking, but the flavor profiles of the cigar itself and the smoke production and everything else that goes into the smoking process is pretty damn good, especially considering the modest price point. And being that smoke production has been outstanding since the get-go and continues to be so, I'm gonna go with a 4.2 out of 5 stars for the Corojo number 5. It's not the most top-tier cigar you're ever gonna smoke in your life, but then again, it's not intended to be. Again, this is a lawn cigar in its basic sense. It does a very good job of what it's supposed to do, and for a guy like me who spends a lot of time outdoors, couldn't ask for more right now. Anywho, that's it for this review. Thanks for joining me once again up here in the mountains of Japan, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Cheers.